Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched Lightyear. Oh boy, let's talk about it. So Lightyear is the latest Pixar movie, and it is the first Pixar movie that we've gotten a chance to see on the big screen since the pandemic hit. Yes, the previous Pixar movie that was actually released theatrically was Onward, and since then we've been getting a ton of straight to Disney Plus releases, which has been a shame. You know, I've expressed how disappointed I am and dismayed I am over the fact that Pixar's movies from the last, I don't know, decade, how long has it been? For the last few years have gone straight to the small screen, because Pixar is just so well known for their incredible animation, and it is a joy, it's a pleasure to watch their films on the big screen. So it has been a bit of a shame, and I do hope now that things are kind of returning back to normal that we'll get a chance to see some of those direct to Disney Plus releases in cinemas at some point, perhaps for like a limited edition situation, who knows. But in the meantime, now we have Lightyear hitting the big screens, and unfortunately it has not been without its drama. Unfortunately, it has not been without its controversies. Guys, I am like so angry. I am so angry at the drama, at the just trolling, the controversy that has been aimed towards this kids film, might I remind you, this children's movie, okay? So we're going to be discussing my thoughts on all of that controversy, all of that drama, as well as my thoughts on the actual film itself within this video. But before we get into all of that good stuff, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Now, without further ado, let's get into my review of Lightyear. So as I said, in this video, I do want to discuss some of the controversies surrounding this film, and I want to start off with the rant now, because for those of you who just are interested in my review of the film itself, you can go ahead and skip over this, but I need to address what is going on social media and seemingly in society at large in this video, because it applies to Lightyear as well as a bunch of other projects that we have been seeing coming out recently, and it's making my blood boil, and I've had enough. I've literally had enough. So the rant starts now, okay? So basically, for those of you guys who don't know, Lightyear was surrounded by controversy many months before it even hit the big screens, when people found out that there was going to be a same-sex kiss. Let's address that controversy number one, shall we? So the same-sex kiss is basically aligned with Disney's new agenda of taking baby steps towards representation in their films. Now, I for one appreciate the steps that they are taking, even though it is very slow, but at the same time, you know, these recent events and controversies and trolling show why it is that it's taken so long for us to see this kind of minuscule representation to begin with. But whatever, we're starting to see more LGBTQ representation in Disney's projects, and unfortunately each and every time it has been met with backlash. Now, I for one didn't really pay attention to all of that controversy at first, because I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. We've seen it so many times at this point. Each and every time something comes out with some LGBTQ representation, people lose their minds, especially if it's a part of a major franchise that's supposed to appeal to all ages. We saw this with the Fantastic Beasts films even, which no one really cares about, but someone needed to stir something up just for something to do. Instead of going outside touching grass, just for something to do, they need to stir shit up, whatever. So unfortunately, the latest victim here is Lightyear, which prominently features an LGBTQ character who is called Alisha, who is a black woman as well. We'll discuss that later on in the review, but she has an openly lesbian relationship with someone that she meets on the planet that they're stranded on, and they share a same-sex kiss, and that's what everyone lost their damn minds about, to the point where they review bombed this movie. Before it even came out, this film was given a 4.2 on IMDb. I remember seeing that a few days ago. It was on Thursday, literally the day before the film was scheduled to come out, okay? And it was already on 4.2 point to and I was like, this is ridiculous. And I already knew it had nothing to do with the film itself. And that's what drives me insane. I'm losing my mind. That's what drives me insane, is that it has nothing to do with the quality of filmmaking on display here. It has nothing to do with the storyline. It has nothing to do with the specific plot points. No, these people hadn't even seen the film. And also, I went on IMDb and I saw the age breakdown and the gender breakdowns of these reviewers, the reviewers that were giving this film 1 star before it even hit cinemas, and they were mostly like older men. And I was literally disgusted. I was like, what is actually going on in this world? I have talked about this recently in regards to, you know, shows like Miss Marvel, Obi-Wan, you know, featuring a black female character, people losing their freaking minds over that. And it's just gotten to the point where I'm just so frustrated and so dismayed at seeing this constant controversy and backlash over simple representation, over seeing people who don't necessarily look like you or live the exact same lives that you do being represented on screen, and to be appreciated by other people who can relate to these things. I just don't understand how, for some people, instead of just thinking, you know, I don't necessarily relate to this personally, I don't necessarily look like that personally, but I'm still happy for the people who do relate to this, who do look like this, to be able to see themselves represented on screen. Instead of having that mentality, no, some people are turning to the internet, not only just review bombing this film, you know, review bombing it on IMDb, you know, review bombing it on Google reviews as well. Like, do you not have a hobby? But then they're going on Twitter saying these vile things as well and getting Tim Allen trending. We'll talk about that in a second. Just all of these mad things just to show, I guess, you know, corporations like Disney that they won't stand for this progress that is seen on their screens. Just to show them that they won't stand for this agenda that Disney is trying to represent, when it's trying to, you know, show audiences around the world that there are different people who come from different backgrounds and live different lives that do deserve representation just as much as anyone else has in the past. It's just gotten me so angry and frustrated, you know, seeing project after project be faced with such stupid, ignorant backlash and just horrible rhetoric surrounding it. And again, it has nothing to do with the film itself. These projects get review bombed before they even land on any screen, whether it be big or small. It has nothing to do with how good they are. You know, and what kind of point are you making really when you're review bombing a show or a movie because you don't like the certain, you know, viewpoints or lives that are being portrayed there, instead of actually giving actual constructive reviews so that the studio can actually see, you know, what they need to improve on, what they need to do better for the future. There's no constructive criticism in these reviews. It's literally just, I don't see myself in this, I don't understand this, I don't relate to this, and therefore this is bad, and therefore this spells the end of the world. Your thoughts are meaningless because they aren't constructive. They don't have any constructive value. We can't build upon this in any way. We can't make positive changes in order to improve future projects. It was the same thing with Turning Red. It was the same thing with Turning Red with professional critics here. Like you have this in your CV, in your resume, professional critics being like, I don't relate to the life of an Asian girl and therefore this film is bad. What? Meanwhile, the rest of us have had no issue whatsoever being able to turn on our critical thinking brains and watch a project that doesn't have, you know, anything to do with our personal lives, like for example Top Gun Maverick, and still be able to see the beauty in it and still be able to enjoy the entertainment value of that film, despite the fact that it stars a white male character. And of course that's expected of us because that kind of character is seen as the norm. That kind of character is seen as the default in Hollywood and has been for decades now. So it's expected for those of us who don't fit into that mold to be able to enjoy that entertainment just as much as we would anything else, because, you know, this is the default. This is what we should be seeing on our screens, and anything that deviates from that is part of an agenda, is part of a, you know, a movement by Hollywood to cater to the libtards or whatever. Oh my God, I'm so freaking angry. I'm sick of it. I'm literally sick of it, because it's like there's more than one type of person. There's more than one type of person, and we should all be okay with seeing those kinds of people depicted on screen, especially in a fictional, it's a fictional world. Come on, let's put on our critical thinking caps, shall we? Why would Star Wars only be populated by white men in terms of its human population? Why, like, why, how would that feasibly be the case? It's a galaxy far, far away in God knows when. So how would that feasibly be the case where you only see white men be represented in this franchise? Just think about it for more than 2 seconds, will you? And it's the same thing with Lightyear. Like, why would there only be white male characters in Lightyear? That makes no sense. Why would there only be heterosexual characters in Lightyear? Come on, let's just think for 2 seconds here. And also, what makes all of this worse, like what is the cherry to the already crappy sundae in all of this, is that the LGBTQ moment that people are getting their knickers in a twist over isn't even that deep. It's not even that deep. The tiny little kiss that we got, the tiny little split second of a moment that we got in that film is barely even anything. It's just a sign of affection that Alisha has towards her partner. That's literally it. It's a lovely moment. It's a heartwarming moment. Of course, when you have these two, they become parents even in this film, and you see them be affectionate towards each other. Who could possibly look at that and say that that was inappropriate? They weren't making out, they weren't doing anything crazy. It's a Pixar movie. But no, people getting their panties in a twist over a peck. Over a peck. Oh please, cry me a whole river, cry me Niagara Falls. Okay, so we've dealt with the rage, the outrage surrounding the representation of an LGBTQ couple in this Pixar movie. Now let's get into the second branch of the outrage that we saw coming out of the release of this movie, and that was that Chris Evans replaced Tim Allen as the voice for Buzz Lightyear. I can't believe that sentence just left my mouth. I can't believe that's, oh God. You know, what's crazy about all of this like fake outrage that we see on socials leading up to a film that has an element that people disagree with is that they have to kind of try and convince us, and I guess themselves, that they care. They have to try and convince us that all they've been thinking about for the last, I don't know, decade or so is Tim Allen. Like Tim Allen all day. Do you know what I mean? Like they are the OG Tim Allen fan, and that's why they're so outraged by this recast. Please give me a break. Please give me a break right now. You didn't care about Tim Allen yesterday. You're just jumping on the bandwagon. Let's be real. Come on, sis. Let's talk. Let's be real. You're just jumping on the bandwagon, right? You just want to trend for a minute, get your 5 seconds of fame, and then go off and say some other outrageous, crazy thing to upset the libtards. Like, that's literally what you're doing here. Because there's this, like, actress, this, like, unknown, irrelevant actress. Literally, I can't even remember her name, and I can't be bothered to waste my internet data on Googling her. But she had the audacity to comment, like, oh, replacing Tim Allen as Buzz Lightyear with Chris Evans was, like, a castration of the character. She used the word castration in regards to Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story franchise. You see what I mean by people pretending that they care? You see how people have to bend over backwards doing all sorts of Olympic level cartwheels just to try and convince you that they really care about this. A castration of the character. Please don't make me laugh. Please do not make me laugh. That is ridiculous. Tim Allen has allegedly been replaced because of his Trump associations, his Trumpisms as it were. And so they replaced him with Chris Evans, who I think did a splendid job as Buzz, and we'll talk about that later when we get into the actual review of this film. But they replaced Tim Allen with Chris Evans, and literally no one had a problem with it until it became a problem, until it became something that was trending on Twitter, and then everyone had to pretend like they really cared. Oh please, I see through all of this nonsense. Okay, so I've gotten all of that out of my system now. Thank you guys so much for indulging me if you did watch this part. But let me know what you guys think. You know, what do you think of all of this constant controversy and fake outrage surrounding, you know, every single thing that Disney does when it slowly but surely tries to introduce more representation in its projects? Let me know, because I just am so tired, I'm so sick of it. But at the same time, just remember this, okay? You know, if you are a part of a minority community in whatever way, and you see these, you know, Twitter headlines and whatever, and that really depresses you or dismays you, just remember that you enjoying your best life, living your best life, watching your favorite movies, TV shows, or whatever that do feature representation that matters to you is your best revenge, sis. That is your best revenge. Okay, don't worry about them. Don't try to communicate with these people online. Please, half of them are bots and the other half are trolls. Okay, so you just carry on living your best life, enjoying these movies, enjoying these TV shows, whatever media you want to consume, and that is your best revenge at the end of the day. There is nothing that can surpass it. Okay, so now let's get into my thoughts on Lightyear, the movie itself. You know, aside from all of that controversy that has nothing to do with the film, what are my thoughts on the actual movie that I saw? Well, let's first of all dive into the story, because here we do have this spin-off of the Toy Story franchise, but the Lightyear that we're introduced to in this film isn't actually Buzz Lightyear from that franchise. Instead, it's a character in a film that inspired the merchandise, which then would create Buzz Lightyear from the Toy Story films. And by the way, the fact that this is a movie within a movie tells me that if, you know, things go well, and if, you know, the hate surrounding this film doesn't kill Pixar's want to continue with this, you could easily have a whole different Lightyear franchise which could easily coexist with the Toy Story films. So here we're introduced to the real Buzz Lightyear, who actually makes a massive mistake at the beginning of the movie, because instead of listening to his friends and co-workers, he decides to make this crucial takeoff on his own without their help, and it ends with them and the entire crew being stranded on this, you know, unknown planet. Now, as time goes on, Buzz's co-workers and the rest of the crew on the entire ship start to build lives of their own. They start to adapt to the fact that they are now on this brand new planet. They have to face all of the creatures, the vines that keep popping up everywhere. You know, they're trying to adapt to their situation. But in the meantime, Buzz is fixated on trying to solve this problem that he caused. He feels an immense amount of guilt and responsibility, and he feels like he has to continue on with mission after mission to ensure they figure out a way to get off that planet, to kind of rectify that massive mistake that he made at the beginning of the film. What I really enjoyed about this whole setup is that they really established how much, you know, people around Buzz were willing to move on and continue on living their best lives. We see this specifically through the character of Alisha, who is Buzz's friend, but also the commander that took a chance on him and believed in him and allowed him to become the great space ranger that he is when we meet him. And he and Alisha have a really close relationship. They have such great chemistry. By the way, Alisha and Buzz have incredible chemistry on screen. They have better on-screen chemistry than a lot of live action characters that we get portrayed by actual actors, whatever. Anyways, Alisha and Buzz were a whole vibe, but Alisha, instead of, you know, allowing Buzz's mistake to, you know, completely derail her life, stop her from living her life entirely the way that it did Buzz, she was able to move on. She met someone, they got married, they had a child together, they even had a granddaughter, and we see this, you know, kind of sequence of events playing out, and it's really touching. And then ultimately you end up with that up moment where Alisha is no longer there. You know, she's passed away because so much time has passed, but you see how she was able to live her life and she adapted to the situation, and how Buzz wasn't able to, and that was really detrimental to him. Now, another thing that really drives this home is the whole idea that essentially every single time Buzz, you know, gets on his ship to try and achieve hyperspeed with this brand new form of fuel that they have to conjure because he lost the previous one, many years pass the faster that he goes. So the first time around when he fails to reach hyperspeed, he returns to the planet and 4 years have passed. And so that really helps accelerate this feeling of life moving on without him, whilst he remains unchanged both physically and mentally. After one unsanctioned final mission, Buzz ends up moving forward 22 years, and instead of meeting the young, vibrant, intelligent Alisha when he returns to the planet, he instead meets her granddaughter, and she is accompanied by some other recruits, volunteers. They're not quite space rangers, they're not even rookies, okay? And they go on this new adventure because Buzz discovers that the planet has actually been taken over by this robot overlord called Zurg. We'll talk about it in a second, okay? So they have to learn how to work together. Buzz has to learn how to accept other people's help, and also be humble enough to, admit when he doesn't know what to do. But then on the flip side, you have Izzy, who's Alisha's granddaughter, and she is bravely trying to follow in her grandmother's footsteps, whilst at the same time buckling under the pressure of this huge, respectable legacy that her grandmother left behind for the Hawthorne name. It certainly doesn't help that Buzz himself keeps comparing Izzy to her grandmother. Like, sis is already dealing with a lot, okay? Trying to measure up to this legendary character. But Buzz also keeps reminding her of all of her shortfalls, which adds to the insecurities that she has. Now, Izzy and Buzz are joined along in this new mission by Mo, Darby, and my favorite cat in the world, Socks. I love Socks so much. Yes, I do. Socks might be the best, I was going to say animated cat, but no, I think fictional cat in general. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know if there are other fictional cats that should be in the running, but I do think that Socks takes the cake, at least for now. So at the heart of this story, we have two classic Pixar lessons. The first one is forgiving yourself when you make a mistake. Allowing yourself to make mistakes, allowing yourself to grow and learn from them. This is something that Buzz is unable to do. He sees this massive mistake that he made and he cannot forgive himself for it. All he sees is how he's destroyed people's lives, he's ruined everything. He doesn't see the beauty in what they've been able to create, how they've been able to adapt, and how they've been able to move on. He is just fixated on that moment where he ruined everything, and that causes him to, halt in his growth, both physically because he is up there in space all the time and he doesn't grow old with the rest of them, but also mentally. And this is perfectly exemplified when we meet the other Buzz, which is a whole situation, again, we'll talk about in a moment. And the next lesson I would say is, allowing people to help you, allowing people to support you in your growth. Buzz is a very stubborn person. He is an expert in his craft. He's a space ranger, and he only really respects people who are on his level or above, like, for example, Commander Alisha. But in the case of the rookies, in the case of anyone below, he just sees them as a hindrance, not realizing that they could also offer up some ideas and solutions to problems that he may not even think of. So it's when he meets up with this new ragtag team of useless almost useless people, okay, but they're not really useless though, as we learn, but it's only when he finally accepts them as teammates that he is able to learn this lesson. He is able to fully appreciate what they can bring to the table, instead of just trying to hold them up to this high regard that he has for himself. And then I would also sprinkle in like a third lesson surrounding Izzy's character, and trying to come into your own even when you're facing the weight of an extraordinary legacy that you're trying to match up to. That's a very specific situation though. That's a very specific situation, but if that relates to you, then that's also in there. I would say overall this is a very compelling and touching and moving story. I mean, it's classic Pixar. Of course you're going to want to cry at least one time during the film, and I would say my time of shedding tears was when Buzz returned to the planet and saw that Alisha had passed away. I was like, no. I was so upset. 100%. But yeah, it's classic Pixar with their little emotional manipulation. It's not the most, you know, out of the world story that we've ever seen, especially not from Pixar itself. I wouldn't say that it's in the top 5, but I do think that they do a good job of conveying these messages really well, and also giving us an entirely different world within the Toy Story cinematic universe. Like, you could feel the difference in the tone, in the aesthetic, and everything compared to Toy Story. This film feels a lot more mature. It feels a lot more, you know, sci-fi as opposed to whatever Toy Story is, its own different genre. And I do feel like perhaps this film was designed to kind of appeal to those who watched Toy Story when they were younger but have now grown a bit older. I think that's what was going on here with this more mature tone. Okay, so now let's get into the characters, and the first one up we have is of course Mr. Buzz Lightyear. Oh, poor Buzz. Poor Buzz, he was dragged through the internet this week. Oh god. But yeah, Buzz is now being voiced by Chris Evans. I think he did an exceptional job personally. Seriously, he was perfect. He was perfect for Buzz Lightyear. Absolutely, yep. And for me, like, even without knowing the whole Tim Allen situation, to me it always made sense to have a different actor voice this version of Buzz, because to me it just allows a kind of differentiation between the two. They're not the same character. This Buzz is an actor portraying a character in a film. So it makes sense to me that he would have a different voice. And yeah, you could say like, oh, his voice is supposed to sound exactly the same for the toy, but not really. You know, oftentimes you don't have the same actor who portrays a character in a film also, you know, producing voice work for toys and merchandise. Like, that's just not the case. So I think it makes sense that it's a different actor. Okay, and I know that people try to turn it into this whole political agenda situation, but to me, Chris Evans was just perfect casting for this role. And also, going back to what I was saying about the different tone of this film, I think it also makes sense, you know, keeping that in mind, so that you would have a different actor voicing Buzz, because it kind of differentiates again between this more kind of child-friendly version of Buzz Lightyear, who's actually a toy brought to life. Okay, he's a toy that's been mass-produced as part of merch for this film, versus, you know, an actor who's portraying a character who has a bit more weight and gravitas and, you know, seriousness and maturity to him. He's more of a three-dimensional character as well. And also, just a side note for a second here, I find it hilarious how people are trying to say that Buzz Lightyear was castrated when Tim Allen was replaced by Chris Evans. When, have you seen a Toy Story film? He was kind of a fool. He was kind of a bumbling fool, at least at the beginning. Like, Buzz Lightyear wasn't the sharpest tool in the box at the beginning of the Toy Story franchise. So the idea that this version would be the castrated version, it just makes no... You see how people just talk nonsense? Anyway. But anyways, my point was, I think Chris Evans did a good job of voicing this more mature three-dimensional version of Buzz Lightyear. I also think it's kind of interesting to see that there might be some kind of unintentional commentary on how the merchandise version of this character who is in a film is less complex and less sophisticated and less mature. You know, he skews younger in terms of target audience to be able to sell a ton of merchandise, obviously, whereas you have the movie version who is voiced by Chris Evans, who is more of a three-dimensional, mature, serious character. And even though he does have some of the, you know, famous catchphrases that were turned into recorded messages for the toys, it's given a different context, and it's given a more kind of heartening context, especially in regards to his relationship with Alisha and then Izzy. So that's interesting, you know, to see how the merchandise kind of stripped away all of that nuance and just made it this like cheap little catchphrase that could be recorded into the toy to impress kids. And also, another reason why Chris Evans was perfect for this role is because they kind of Captain America Buzz Lightyear. Anyways, like regardless of who was voicing the character, just in terms of the script itself, that's kind of what happened. Where, you know, it's very similar. Like Buzz was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to save the entire population of the crew and everyone who he felt he had let down, and he, you know, went on a ship. It's not called the Valkyrie, but you know, it's a similar thing. He was about to crash, okay, and also he was frozen in time. Like every single time he went on those missions, he stopped aging. Meanwhile, the people on the planet were aging like 60 plus years or so. So yeah, like he was literally a man out of time, and I believe by the end he'd moved like a whole century into the future. So yeah, if Pixar was gonna Steve Rogers Buzz Lightyear, then why not get the actor who actually played him in the Marvel films, right? And in terms of the supporting characters, I also really enjoyed them. I loved Alisha. Oh my goodness, as I said before, I love the friendship between Alisha and Buzz. I thought it was just so organic, it was so convincing, and again, they had more on-screen chemistry as an animated duo than a lot of live action ones do. Make that make sense. Anyways, some Pixar magic. But yeah, I think Uzo Aduba did an incredible job voicing this character. I recognized her voice. I was like, is that my sis Uzo? I think she was a perfect supporting character, and then her death made way for the rise of her granddaughter, who is voiced by Keke Palmer, who has such a distinctive voice. I also recognized her voice, but I think it fit the character perfectly. They did such a good job of animating these black female characters and allowing their voices to fit so perfectly. It was incredible. And again, as I said before, I was really happy to see the prevalence of these black female characters as a I don't know if you noticed, okay, it just meant the world to me. It literally just meant the world to me, and it's so sad to me that people have to insist on this being a whole grand conspiracy for you to just have, you know, black female representation and things. It's crazy, but I for one really appreciate it, and I hope that, you know, younger girls and boys, you know, and anyone watching this will also have that sense of appreciation and really treasure these characters as well. And then you have the other characters like Mo, who was yeah, he'd be making mistakes. I know the lesson was to like accept that you've made mistakes in the past and move on and blah blah blah, but like Mo was kind of taking the mick. Mo was kind of testing my patience, not gonna lie. He basically almost got everyone captured for like nothing. He kept insisting about his pen. I was like, Mo, can we focus here? He's voiced by Taika Waititi, really funny, great character. And then you have Dale Seuss, who voices Darby Steele, who's this like ex-con. She's an ex-con, and she apparently went to prison for, you know, stealing a ship, which Buzz can relate to. But yeah, she's a great character. Like, she is able to make a bomb out of any 3 objects. She proves herself very useful, I must say. In terms of usefulness, she's definitely above Mo. But the one who is above them all is, of course, Socks. Socks is absolutely my favorite. I love Socks. I'm so sorry. Like, Socks is just everything. And Socks was perfectly voiced by Peter Son. I think he did an incredible job voicing this character, and I think it was just a wonderful addition to the Toy Story verse. Okay, so I have been promising this for a minute now, but lastly, we need to talk about the twist. We need to talk about Zurg. Oh my. Okay, so this was actually the next bit of controversy that this film was surrounded by, and this actually has something to do with the story, so I guess I acknowledge it a bit more than the other stuff. But people had a problem with the Zurg twist. It turns out that Zurg is an older version of Buzz from an alternate timeline, and you know, people apparently didn't like that. Like, people really just did not like that twist. But guess what? I did. Yep, I did. I absolutely love this twist. I think it makes sense. Listen, first of all, again, going back to the whole let's pretend we really care about this thing that we're outraged by. Who can really look me in the eye and tell me that the last, what is it, 30 years? Oh, Jesus, 30 years since Pixar came out with the first Toy Story movie. For the last 30 years, your thoughts have been consumed by the character Zurg. Who can look me in the eye and tell me that? Who can look me in the eye and tell me that for the last 30 years, all of your thoughts have been possessed by just thoughts of Zurg? You know, you're obsessed with this character. He's your favorite character of all time. That's all you care about. Like, who can feasibly tell me this? Honestly tell me this. Not a single, put your hand down. Not a single one of you can. So tell me why all of a sudden they decided to make this creative change to the character. Why are people up in arms about it? I genuinely don't understand. You didn't care yesterday. You didn't even know what that character was called yesterday, and now you're upset. How? Why? Literally. But that's the first thing. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I ever cared about Zurg. Because I didn't even know what that character was called, even though his look is kind of iconic, okay? But the second thing is, I like this twist because it makes sense within the context of the story. Remember how I was saying that Buzz was obsessed with his mistake and he was stuck in time, replaying that moment where he feels he destroyed everything and ruined everyone's lives? Remember that? Well, it makes sense then to introduce an older version of Buzz who never got over that mistake. He was still stuck in his head about, you know, how he ruined everything, and he was obsessed over trying to find a solution. He wasn't, you know, going to others to get help in any way, and he wasn't actually looking around him and appreciating what other people had been able to do with their lives despite the situation that they had fallen under. Instead, he was just stuck in his own mind. He wasn't evolving in any way, learning from those mistakes, and that's why he's become obsessed with, you know, trying to fix things, even though it would mean destroying everything that everyone else had built. For me, that made sense thematically. That's a really compelling story, and it made for a great villain. For Buzz to have to face himself, someone who could anticipate his next move, that was really interesting. And this is a time where we scarcely see good villains anymore. So why are we, you know, biting the hand that feeds us now? Like, I'm baffled, man. I'm literally so lost as to the Zurg backlash. I'm so tired. I'm literally so tired. So guys, I had a really fun time with this one. I very much enjoyed Lightyear, regardless of all the nonsense that's surrounding it. It's not the toppity top, the creme de la creme of what Pixar has had to offer these last 30 years, but I do think it is a great entry, particularly for the Toy Story franchise, to kind of diverge from the main story. And so with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Lightyear a 7.5 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Lightyear, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.